Hello, this is Justin at the Tech Train here, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to create your own monochromatic landscape background template in Microsoft PowerPoint, using nothing but the Microsoft PowerPoint drawing tools to create not only a background image, but one which can very quickly and easily be customized to create a whole range of moods and feelings. So let's get started. I'm going to begin with a new blank presentation. I'm going to change the layout to blank, and I don't need the thumbnails. I'm going to close that up to give myself as much room as possible. I'm also going to zoom out slightly at the moment just so I can see the space around the outside of the slide too. Right, let's start drawing the first part of this landscape, which is the ground nearest to us. To do this, I'm going to go to the Insert menu and then choose Shapes. And from the Lines section, we're going to use the Scribble tool here. So I'm going to click on Scribble, and I'm going to start just outside of the slide itself. I'm going to start around here, and I'm simply going to roughly draw a line, and it certainly doesn't have to be neat because this is, after all, supposed to represent a natural landscape. I'm just going to come down here and then rise up slightly there. So obviously you can create this however you like. Just going to go around to the edge. Now, once you get to the edge and you're off the edge here, it's important that you don't let go because we need to fill this shape. So this is only the top part of it. It's just a line, so there's nothing to fill. So once I'm outside of the slide, I have to just simply go all the way around the outside like that, and then up to where the line begins. And you see that as soon as I've done that, it has filled in that for me. Now I don't want that color, so the first thing I'm going to do now I've completed that shape is to make sure it's selected, and at the top I'm going to go to Shape Outline and select No Outline. And then this is where we get to choose the color theme. Now this is a monochromatic image. Now monochromatic in this sense doesn't mean only one color, or at least only one type of color. What it means is that it's one base color with multiple shades of that single color. And this is what gives the image its theme, its look. So I'm going to go to Shape Fill and choose More Fill Colors. And obviously here you can choose whatever you like. So I'm going to go for a sort of an orangey color over here. So that'll be the main basic theme for the landscape. However, the land nearest to me needs to be the darkest shade of that. So I'm going to go back to Shape Fill and More Fill Colors. And once you've chosen the base color that you're happy with, just make that slightly warmer perhaps, just like that, slightly more red, there we are. Once you've chosen the color within this section, you mustn't touch this section again. You're not going to affect it. The only part that you can touch is this part on the right hand side, and this is where it's the same color, it's just a different amount of brightness or darkness to it effectively. So I'm going to drag this down quite close to the bottom, something like that I think. So it's a fairly dark color like that. I'm going to click OK, and you see if I just run that presentation, you can see that initial landscape there. Okay, so the next thing to do is the second land. So again, we're going to go to Insert, Shapes, choose the Scribble tool, and start slightly higher up on this one. And again, don't forget to start just outside the slide itself. Now, I don't want to exactly follow the first one, so I'm going to create a slightly different shape. And it's okay if it overlaps it, so I'm going to go behind this one here like that, and then rise up a little, and then perhaps a little bit more like that. And then once we've come off the outside, go all the way around the edge, making sure that we don't go back inside the slide itself, and when we get to the end, there we are. Right, so it's the same process. So first of all, we're going to get rid of the outline like that. Then we're going to click the little bucket up here next to shape fill, so it's the same color as the previous one. But now we're going to open up that menu, click on more fill colors, and remember we mustn't go anywhere near this area here. All we're going to do now is incrementally increase the brightness of the color by dragging the little black triangle on the right here up slightly. So I'm just going to move it up slightly like that. We don't have to go too far. Down here you have a preview, and as long as you can see a distinct difference between the two colors there, that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to click OK. Still something wrong though, and that is because of course this land here should be behind the other land. So I'm going to go to the Home tab now and click on Select on the right hand side and open up the selection pane. So here is the shape that's selected. We can see it's got this pink highlighting here. We can see it's selected here. All I need to do is drag that down the list so it is behind the other shape. And if I run that now, you can see the effect. You can see that it looks a little bit like there are sort of hills going off into the distance slightly. So it's now just a case of repeating that process as many times as you want. I'll do a couple more perhaps. So I'm just going to very quickly go to Insert Shapes, Scribble, and I'll do this a little bit more quickly this time. So let's just have a rough landscape like that. Perhaps as the land is further away, the details of it, the roughness of it is slightly less. So there we are. So again, we've completed it. We remove the outline, fill it with the color that we used last, then open up the shape fill, more fill colors, and just increase the brightness of that again. And then in the right hand side, drag the shape right to the very bottom. There we go. And let's try that one more time. So Insert Shapes, Scribble, like this. And we'll get fairly close to it this time, like that. A little bit of a mountain on the edge there, and then all the way around, and then fill, outline, more fill colors, and slightly brighter again, like that. Drag it to the bottom. There we go. I think that'll do for now. Right, so now we've got our multiple layers there. We want to have a little bit of interest, and so I'm going to have a mountain rising up here in the distance just to give it a little bit more height. We can do that in exactly the same way as everything else, but we're just going to go a little bit further up. So let's just have a little bit of a bit here like that, and then let's have a taller mountain here like that. There we go. And same process, so no line rather, fill it, more fill colors, and brighter again. Drag that to the bottom. Now what I want to do is to set the sky or the background color as another one. So I'm going to right click now on the format background. In fact, no, I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to just use a rectangle for this. Let's keep it simple. So I'm going to get a rectangle. Same basic process, so get rid of the outline, get rid of the shape fill, or choose the shape fill, but it's now the same color as the last layer, of course. This needs to be a lot lighter. This is the sky, so I'm going to go much lighter here, like that, and then set that. I think that might need to be even lighter still. There we are, and set that to the back. So I think that has to be a little bit lighter. So let's go to shape fill, more fill colors, and increase that still further. Yep, I think that's good. And if I just F5 there to see it, you can see the effect building up now of those layers of land disappearing off into the horizon, getting fainter and fainter. So other things that we can do at this point, I'm going to put a sun in there. So I'm going to grab a circle now. And as I draw the circle, I want it to be a perfect circle, which is not always easy to do, but if you hold down the Shift key, it will snap into a perfect circle. Now, there's a couple of different ways we could do this. We could simply have a solid sun like that with no outline, fill, but this time it's going to be as light and as bright as we can possibly get it, like that. And I could put this perhaps, let's put this right at the back. Oops, not right at the back, just in front of the sky, of course. So I could put it like that, so it's just behind there. That's absolutely fine, we can do that. Another thing you can do is I'm going to make it a bit bigger, so it's too big really at this point. Or of course you could, you know, it's up to you. You could, oops, make it as dramatic as you want, sort of a bit otherworldly, that one. But I'm going to make it just a bit bigger than I would normally. And then in the shape effects, I'm going to go to soft edges. And here I'm going to this one or this one. I think maybe that one, and just make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And that softer edge just has the effect, I think, a little bit of making it seem a bit more sun-like. It adds a bit more variation in there. As well as variation, we can also vary things by changing the fill color of, say, this shape here, that's the mountain one there, so that instead of being a solid color, it's actually a gradient color, so we can do that. So if we click on that shape there, we go to shape format and shape fill. Now I'm going to choose gradient here, and I'm going to have a look at, let's see, it's always a bit difficult to see when it's very pale, but I want the gradient at the top like that, but maybe getting a bit darker. So I think I want it to be, I think like that perhaps. So if I hover over that, you can see that the gradient at the bottom end of this is slightly darker than at the top. Now, of course, a lot of the bottom part of it is hidden. So if I want to be able to see that, what I'll need to do is go back into gradient and choose more gradients to open up the panel on the right. Let's just close the selection panel for the moment. And here you can see the tab stops there. So that's the color of the mountains as we actually chose it. And that is a slightly darker color, and then PowerPoint's put in an even darker color beyond that. So let's just see what happens if I drag this up slightly like that. Possibly. Let's swap these over and drag the very dark one up. I think that might work, but I'm going to bring this one. I quite like the way that the sun is now almost making the top of that mountain look even more sort of misty, as though it's almost being silhouetted. I quite like that. If I bring this top end down though, let's move that slightly. What I'm trying to get is the impression that the top part is catching the light and much brighter, and the bottom part is just that little bit darker. Don't want it too dark though, because otherwise it'll look a bit odd with this brighter color in front of it. So I think I might just, let's just swap that back over again and just lift that up very slightly to there. I think just about there will do. There we go. Right, okay then, so what next? Well, the next thing to do is to add something living. That's the base ground. But what we need to do now is to add some trees to this scene. So there's a couple of different ways that we can do that, and it will depend slightly on which version of Office you have. If you have Office 2016, then in the Insert menu, you'll have an Icons button there. And if you open up the icons and we search for tree, you will see that we have some options here. I quite like this fir tree here for this scene, so I'm going to select it and click insert, and that gives me this fir tree. Now that's fine if you have Office 2016, but of course if you don't have Office 2016, you don't have that button, then what do? Well, the option then is to draw your own tree. And it's not actually that difficult. When you look at it, it's basically just 3 triangles and a rectangle. So very quickly, if you want to do something like this, I would go into Shapes, grab a triangle, draw that out like that. I'd probably right click on it and edit the points, grab the middle part of the bottom section there and just lift it up to create that kind of curve. You can see a slight curve going on there. Maybe lift it up slightly more like that and just tweak the handles to create that curve. There we go. Then I would control click drag down, control click drag down again and make this bottom one slightly bigger like that, and move it up slightly. Then I would grab a rectangle, draw a quick rectangle out and put that in position as well. Then I would hold down Shift and select all of these shapes together. and I would choose no outline on these and shape fill black, and then in the shape format align menu I would align their centers like that. And then I can Control G to group them and resize them, and there we are. So it's you know, very similar to the icon tree. So how you do it doesn't matter, but that's the option that you've got there. And of course, if you wanted to make a tree that was a bit different to the one here, then you could create that using the shapes as I just showed you there. Okay, so what do we do with this now? Well, the next thing is to make sure that the trees are both the same color as the layer of land that they are supposed to be growing on, and also that as they go further away, of course, they get smaller. So I'm going to just reduce the tree size slightly here. That's a little bit ridiculous. So something like that I think will do. And then I need to fill it the same color as this foreground here. To do that, I'm going to go to Shape Fill and just choose the eyedropper. Click on the foreground color here, and there we are. That tree is now exactly the same color as the foreground. So I can now hold the Control key down and keep the Control key down as I simply click and drag this tree here to create multiple copies. So I'm just keeping the Control key down and just dragging around to create all those copies. I think this tree looks like it's floating, so I'm going to bring, oh not that one there, bring it down slightly, and you can edit each individual one if you want to, but that's good enough for now. So once you've done that, the next step is to do the trees in the layer behind that. So I'm going to Control click and drag a tree over there. I'm going to reduce the size of that tree slightly, like that, and then again go to Shape Fill and Eyedropper, and then click on the layer that that tree is supposed to be growing on. There we are. And I can now Control click and drag those trees around as well. Now I'm going to put a couple over here, but what you'll notice is these trees are too near us. They're in front of these trees. So I'm just going to click on those trees like that. And probably the easiest thing here is if I click on these trees like that. I'm going to Control G to group those trees, and then in the selection pane just simply move this group behind the freeform shape, which is the layer at the front there, like that. There we go. Let's add another tree. Let's just Control click this tree over here, make this much smaller. There we go, and this will be sort of more in the distance there. I want that to be the same color as this land, so I'm going to go to Shape Fill Eyedropper, click on that. There we go. And then again, I'm going to just click and drag those trees like that. Have a couple over here as well. There we go. Maybe one over there as well. And then again, I can just simply hold down Shift. I can select these trees if I want to, only the ones that are actually in front of other trees, like that. There we go. And then I can Control G to group them and drag that back, like that. There we go. Oh, I think there's one tree just sticking out there, so I'll just move that across. There we are. Now, if you want to do anything else, you could perhaps add some birds to the sky. Now, unfortunately, there are no birds in the icons, despite the fact, interestingly, that the icon for the icons includes a bird, although it's a bit of an odd one, I suppose. But if I do bird, it's really only things like a bird that's sitting still or a hummingbird, which isn't quite right. I think there is actually a pterodactyl, so from a distance that almost looks bird-like, so we could maybe have a pterodactyl in here. Maybe it is a scene from the prehistoric, I don't know, but you can draw your own bird if you wanted to. You could simply draw it as a couple of little lines like we all did when we were smaller, so you could do something like that perhaps. You could add some details there. If you wanted to, you could always get a picture of a castle or something as a picture from the internet and then turn that into a black silhouette if you wanted to, or draw your own castle. But there we are. Now, once you've drawn your background, you'll want to actually use it as a background. At the moment, it's just so many layers, it's going to be quite difficult. So what I would do here, if I just open up the thumbnails again, is I would Control A to select everything, and then I'm actually going to Control X to cut, which does seem fairly pointless actually, but if I right click, I can paste using the first paste button here exactly the same. So that's now still got all of those separate shapes. However, if I right click and I use the second paste option there, it pastes it as a single picture. So you'll see that we now have in the selection just one picture. So it's no longer individual shapes, it's now one picture. Now, of course, it's also not quite right because we can now see around the outside of it. So I'm just going to level up or layer up that corner. So it's up in the corner there, like that, that'll do. And then I'm going to drag the bottom right out so that the picture looks as it did before. So the one problem with pasting it as a picture, it does tend to just change the size. Microsoft PowerPoint tries to adjust it. I think I'll just move that down slightly. I think about there will do. There we go, that's fine. And once we've done that, although you don't have to, I quite like the idea. I'm going to select a shape there and just take the outline away from it. And I'm going to line that up with the left-hand edge of the slide. And then I'm going to drag that across, and I'm going to put this one on the right-hand side, drag another one, and this one is going to go across the top of the slide there, and then this one finally will be at the bottom, which can't quite see at the moment. Let's just hide the picture so I can see where it is. There we go. The point of all this is that I can now subtract from this picture by using a Boolean operation here. This is what I mean. I'm going to select the picture in the middle, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and click on this rectangle on the left-hand side. And then if I go into Shape Format up here and into Merge Shapes, you see I can click Subtract, and that gets rid of the bit of the picture that was sticking out to the left-hand side of the slide. I'll do this again now. Apologies for my phone making noises. Let me just turn that to silent. So the top of the bit there, I'll click on the picture in the middle, hold down Shift, click on the rectangle at the top, and then again go to Shape Format, Merge Shapes, Subtract. Do the same for the right, and finally for the bottom. So that now gives us a picture which is exactly the same size and same proportions as our slide. And in fact, if you want to, you can even right click on this and save that as a picture. It'll save it as a PNG, and that'll be an image on your computer that you can then use perhaps as the background for the slide master and use it as a template there. Now, one final thing that you can do with this, which is quite good, I'm going to just duplicate this slide a few times there, is that you can change the color theme of this very, very easily. So I've gone to the second slide here, selected this picture, and if I go to Picture Format and then we go to Color, you'll see that there are all sorts of variations. And just by choosing one of those variations, the entire picture creates this lovely effect. Let's try another one there. So click on the picture, Picture Format, Color. Let's choose yellow there, and then one more, click on it, Picture Format, Color, and maybe green. So you can see how very quickly you can create some lovely themes for this image, which give it a totally different feel. And as it's a background picture, you can put whatever content, of course, you want inside. So if we run this now, you can see there's the first slide, second, third, a little bit faint that one perhaps, but as a background image it works because you don't want it to be too dominant. And then finally the fourth one. And that's looking really good. And you see how those trees are also sort of blending into the distance and looking as though they are caught by the mist slightly. So there we are. So that's how to create a monochromatic theme in Microsoft PowerPoint. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you did, it would be fantastic if you could give this video a quick like. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe. I try and produce videos as often as I possibly can. If you subscribe, then you'll know when they've gone live. And if you have any questions or suggestions at all, do leave them in the comments below. I do read all comments, and I try as quickly as possible to reply to all comments as well. This file, as per usual, will be available to download if you would like to. If you go onto patreon.com/thetechtrain, then you'll be able to download this file and all resources which I create in the videos, as well as other bits and pieces exclusively available for Patreon supporters. So thank you very much indeed for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Bye for now.